Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Sarah Audsley, and I am the Writing Across Media facilitator at Vermont Studio Center, which means I have the pleasure of managing the writing program, among many other things, here at VSC. If you're not familiar with VSC, a little bit about us. We are located in northern Vermont in the town of Johnson, and we are an international residency program for visual artists and writers. Our beautiful campus is bisected by the Gihon River, and it's been raining for the last couple of days, so it's pretty swollen. And if you come here as a writer, all of the studios for writers are in the Maverick Studio building, and they overlook the Gihon River. And I only just say that because our reader tonight, Paige Buffington, was a writer in residence in 2016. So it's lovely to have her back here. I want to take a moment to recognize that VSC operates on land that has long served as a site of meeting and exchange among Indigenous people for thousands of years, and it is the home of the Abenaki people. We honor, recognize, and respect these peoples as the traditional stewards of the land and waters on which we gather. Thank you so much for being here. Paige will read for about 25 minutes, and then there will be a short question and answer session afterwards. And I'm so pleased to be here with you all. Thank you for joining us tonight. Paige Buffington's family is originally from Tohatchi, New Mexico, a small town sitting in the eastern portion of the Navajo Nation. She is Navajo, of the Bear Enemies clan born for white people. She received both a BFA and MFA in creative writing from the Institute of American Indian Arts. She attended Vermont Studio Center for a month-long residency in September of 2016. Her work has been published in the Dine Reader, Narrative, Terrain.org, Yellow Medicine Review, and Contra Viento, among others. She currently lives in Gallup, New Mexico, and she is in her 5th year of teaching 1st grade near the Yatahey, Rock Springs, and China Springs communities. She is currently at work on her first book of poems. It is a deep pleasure to bring you back virtually to Vermont Studio Center, Paige, and I'm so excited to hear your work and to hear you read. I'm going to turn the virtual floor over to you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for being here. I'd like to extend gratitude to the Rona Jaff Foundation. I was kind of reading a little bit about all the writers they supported. It's really nice to be on the outer orbit of the artists that they've supported. I'd also like to thank Vermont Studio Center for giving a safe space to artists, for giving them time. It was a good experience for me. It was healthy for me to go. It was the first time that I had ever been that far away from home without someone from my community. So it was so good. It was so good for me in many different ways. I'd like to thank Sarah. Yeah, Sarah, thank you for getting everything together, for getting into contact with me. You've been a big help. Thank you. And you're making me feel so welcome. So I appreciate it. So I'd like to open with saying that when we have any type of gathering here at home, it's customary to go shake hands, go say hi, introduce yourself, because it's an acknowledgement that they're there to support you. So if we were in the same room, I would definitely go up to everybody, introduce myself, and say thank you. I'm so appreciative for all of you, for this voice, for my stories. I'm just really grateful, really grateful. As Sarah had mentioned, I'm reading out of Yatahey, Gallup, New Mexico. It is the traditional homelands of the Navajo and Zuni peoples. I will be sharing 4 narrative poems. The titles are Ways to Break My Heart, Because You Are Magic, Flood, and Sundagger. And the first and last poems will be the longest, just so you know what you're in for. And I hope that you're able to connect with them in some way. Again, thank you for being here. ways to break my heart. Let's have breakfast at midnight. Sit across from me, inch closer to the window. Stretch your legs across the tattered teal vinyl of this old booth. My love, rest your head. Motion for me to order first. Order coffee only. Say I'm not that hungry. Say some days I can't believe I made it. I can't believe I'm still here. Look down toward the muddied linoleum when I say, you know better than to say things like that. Look back at me then with your war-tired eyes. Close them when I stretch over the table to put my hand over your heart. Wait for 4 heartbeats, 4 breaths. Move my hand up to your cheek. Tell me you don't want to talk until this old song coming through the speakers is over. Tell me you no longer slow dance. Say that you're using YouTube to relearn colors in our language. Tell me nothing except that all of this is real. The turquoise honey neon caught in the condensation of this old restaurant's window. The backpacked men coming in and asking if anyone is heading north towards Tohatchi, the rodeo red of Monticello. Tell me who brought down the stars to give eyes to horses. Tell me the name of the grandpa whose younger self lives, handsome and strong in the black and white backgrounds of old westerns. Remind me how searchlight was the only English word he knew. Tell me that the sun travels with and for me. List the names of the relatives your mother left you and your brother with, the name of the fire. Remind me how the elk looked as they ran down from the mountain and away from it. Embers stretched like constellations from what was left of their velvet crowns. Remind me that from that night, you would only have 3,127 more nights with your brother. Show me how the relatives covered your eyes. Remind me how 200 miles away, but on that same night of the fire, your mother walked away from a rollover with only a burn on her right wrist. List every name you call that burn. That night, a miracle, a returning home to her sons, a shelled supernova, a butterfly. Break this stretch of sky in half. Tell me your creation stories. Tell me how your great grandpa drove 500 miles north with an infant to bathe him in the headwaters of the Colorado. Tell me that it was lightly snowing when they splashed white water across your uncle's new face. Say this uncle dreamt and spoke in mountains, that they called him Rocky after them, that your grandpa would call out this name in evenings, how they could spot him by the dust he'd kick up running home. List all the ways you'll miss him forever. Tell me that he was always meant to leave with the snow. List all the ways our mountains are like the mountains in the Middle East. Sing the name of the friend who lived up near the Red Rocks just outside the Denny's on the east side of town. Stand to show me how he walked out onto the train tracks. Read the operator's statement about how he tried to slow the train, the sureness with which the teenager stood, eyes tightly closed, palms clasped over his ears. Guess what he might have been listening to, something poem-like with heavy guitars. Use this dusty napkin to write what was written in marker across his white t-shirt stained with red dust. Say, I think it was the only way he could think of to go. List all the songs you can play on the harmonica, each color your mother painted the house of your childhood, a salmon, aquamarine, canary box in that treeless valley of burning red. Show me your landmarks, the juniper half dead, half alive, where the water goes in different directions, the balancing rock. Walk with me and tell me the nicknames of your brother, all your cousins. List the ways you found your way home. Teach me how you go years without calling. Teach me how to live with a heart emptying with news that another elder has left. Teach me how you go days without sleeping and drive thousands of miles while wide awake. Tell me everything I've always known, that it was all written for us, that all of this was always meant to be. You spent your senior year in high school knocking on the doors of all the houses your brothers would sleep in. You woke with each slam of a truck's door, watched headlights move across the ceilings. Then you began dreaming of him, riding horses on the rings of Saturn, speaking fluently to you in our language when our language was much older. You left for San Diego. They sent you to Fort Worth overseas. Even after years, you and your mother spent your nights waiting for a knock on the door, a phone call, a confirmation of what your heart had already known. Tell me that still the siren startled your mother. It was a week of leave for you, early November, nearly 7 and already dark. She dropped the freshly peeled potato on the floor. Shavings of sterling silver, loose beads, mud tracked in 2 seasons ago, stuck to the wet white of it. She scrubbed and kept scrubbing, said it was still good. She said, I want to have food ready for my sons. You were and had been the only son sitting at the table for years. It was raining and neither of you were hungry. The uniformed men looked into the wash with flashlights, threw rocks at the coyotes, wrapped the yellow tape around the puffs of blue sagebrush. Say that someone had found a bag, an animal maybe, something or someone. The small animals picked at all the soft parts of it, the cheeks, ears, and eyes. They wouldn't know or couldn't be sure for a few weeks, maybe months. By then, you'd be away again, armed and sitting on a mud wall outside of some city in a desert I'll never see. You found a poppy field in the middle of all that dust. Remind me that you stayed with those poppies, naming their colors, marigold, rust, flint, to distract yourself, that you were out praying in the field until the yellowing of daybreak. Tell me why you think we cannot bring ourselves to wipe all the steam off the windows. Remind me that it hurts so much that we will never really look through. Say they never have warm coffee in this place. He always would say that he would go young. It should have been me. Say you had always planned to leave in the morning. Say you forgot and can't find anyone who remembers the Navajo name for this place. Say you don't know why you stop when driving through at all, that you wish you could come and leave quietly like the snow. Thank you. Okay, and this next one is called Flood. It was New Year's Eve. Someone played an old country song our parents loved, their parents loved. I sang the psalms of the brokenhearted toward a jet black night. Hail water crawled down those red canyon walls, the crests of coal horses. I said, I don't drink this much. You're supposed to take care of me. My grandmother sang to fevered infants in hospitals. She took care of me. Quilts, cedar beads wrapped around a wrist, afternoon TV. I sank into the warm wings of her, squeezed into the narrow, dusty openings of memory. There are 10,000 ways a desert can gut you. 10,000 ways water finds the smallest openings to create a crack in the stone if flash flood. She knew her heart was weakening. A snake rattles hidden in the brush. A blue jay lands on a man who fell asleep in the snow. I slept as you pressed your best shirts, packed a duffel. I watched you step onto a Greyhound headed to Prescott or somewhere south, headphones in, Cash singing that old country song our parents loved, their parents loved, listening with your head hanging low. Love, I waited for your call, watched dust glitter in sunbeams, searched for star maps in letters you wrote. I found your father, met him for coffee in Holbrook. He received and kept the postcard you sent from Las Vegas years ago. I drove deeper into desert, searched every bus station in Phoenix, glanced at each doormat for a boot print of Halchita red. They heard a clicking in my heart once, said that I cried with each heavy rain. They told me to stop crying, to never chase after a man, to splash walls with herb water, to never keep his things around. A weakening, a flash, a flood, an absence, a horse's heart, a redstone beating. I kept the boots you left by the door, white linoleum stained with a vermilion dirt. Spring water runs red through their canyons. It's been years since that new year. The desert flashes in lightning light. A juniper white shell swallows. The coal horses flash their teeth. Love, I've learned that my grandmother loved a man. I imagine him riding up on a dark horse, stirring the quail, walking up to the one-room house in a flower-printed pearl-buttoned shirt. I see her pouring him coffee, hair curled, jet black and shining, each willow opening with the desert's breathing. What did he do? Where was he from? Where did he go? He was from Utah, where red towers touch the blue, blue sky. He stopped coming around. We did not ask her about him. We heard he drowned in a mountain lake many years ago. Love, I still imagine jumping into the Pacific, the Colorado with you. I still see her waiting, watching the hills for a break in the landscape for a dark horse. I imagine you in a desert deeper than this one, pensive somewhere. I see you sitting in the short shade of a cedar tree. There are 10,000 ways the desert can gut you. 10,000 ways water finds the smallest openings to create a crack in the stone, a flash flood. You never looked at me and sang that old country song our parents loved, their parents loved. We never slow danced in a one-room house. Thank you. Okay, and this is the next one. Because you are magic, I refuse to admit the last place I saw you was in the parking lot of a Costco just off of I-25 in Albuquerque, the Q, Burke. It was in October when the leaves are dead or dying, when the Rio Grande exposes its mud-colored backbone to the freeways, the dimming sun. It was in this half-time and half-light when the great cranes moved down to El Paso, Miami, maybe, or somewhere I can't name, somewhere deeper south. You in the back seat, best beads on, feet resting on a rusting metal crate, said you couldn't see the flock, asked me to tie your shoes, to pull the net over paper plates towering in the truck bed, asked if I wanted the leftover breadsticks for my drive back up to Santa Fe. Some nights I wonder if you saw the faint line of the several winged bodies, if you chose not to acknowledge the pain below your heart, your lost sons, chose not to watch their silent gray migration. I wonder if you hear me call Olive Garden my sacred place. Watch me throw at roses, carnations, and knitting needles from I-25. If you watch me bow my head each time I crawl up a truck's bed, as if entering a ceremony, a mud-floored church. At times, I wonder if you can feel this hymn of wind-filled plastic bags, this shallow river swelling in my throat. Okay, so this last one is Sundagger, and I think it's perfect. I don't want to touch it ever, and that's probably the only poem I have where I don't want to. And I wrote it when I was in Vermont. And like I said, it was the first time I had ever been away from my community. I've always lived with my sister, except for a year. And I think I needed to go do that to kind of reflect on these things without being here. So it's the last poem that I'm going to share, and it's my favorite. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoy sharing it and as much as I enjoyed writing it. Sundagger. I asked you to move your feet. The crows, sick with city, cried into Chuparosa. They called to us from wires. Thin black strands fell at our feet, into our hair, our hands. You said they were light as fishbone, feathers or tire strands maybe. You said you could drive 1,000 miles without blinking, that you could be a bird. I said a bird would see that we are losing light. It was already 15 past 7, all lavender with haze. You said, I know what time it is. All this moving has rubbed my heels raw. The walking, you said, had ruined your dollar store flats. You dropped the trash bag full of clothes, of DVDs, hair rollers near the stop sign, sat on a curb warm with the Yuma's cindering sun. It's time to go back, I said, remember? You said to give you a minute. It was something, it was always something. When we were younger, it was the birthday song, Fear of Drowning, daydreaming and not wanting to haul water. Today, the sun may be, the sun and all its shining. Your legs heavy as horses, traffic needing a cigarette, your hair hadn't been washed. I watched you unweave your braids. You said Grandma made them too tight. I said we wouldn't tell her. We didn't tie your hair back up. We let you run the canyons wild. Dad called you golden maned, his tiny mouse. Let water trickle down your head to ease the white sun's burning. Remember filling gallons with spring water, the black pooling at a canyon's mossy bottom, the minnows in their tin suits. The purple landscape we visited, abandoned and blazing, left to sidewinders and buzzards. To us, under that sky wide opened, we were almost airless. Dad said, I feel like I could disappear. You said, I want to find the sun dagger. You wanted to watch a blade of light move and slice a rock-carved spiral in half to capture a source of light. We traced the chalk white water lines with our fingers for miles, looked in every crevice, searched until our toes touched the highway, until the clouds caught fire. We hunted until the sea finally called the sun home. You hid your pink sunned face in his collarbone, placed your ear near the pocket by his heart. Don't cry, baby girl. We will find it next time. He carried you out, bought a gas station t-shirt, a horned toad, the light dagger screen printed, you wore it always. To church and school, receptions, the shooting range. Little restless animal, you paced in that shirt the night Dad threw a mattress into his truck camper. You asked me what he was packing for. A rifle, a few books, the tent, his button-up shirts. We watched the objects move like the trains. Grandma made us go to bed. Don't chew on your collar, leave him be. Don't cry after a man. Remember? You made me spit out the sleep tea she boiled for us, made me bury the remaining herbs. We snuck out the window, crawled up the tailgate, saw some of what he packed. A few dishes, Tupperware packed with bacon and squash, the baby wipes we used to clean ourselves. So we climbed into the cave smelling of summer and hid. We listened to the hum of the highway, counted streetlights. You asked if we were moving west. Dad stopped the truck when he heard voices from the camper. Goddamn girls, I'm not going all the way back, remember? We turned into a Walmart in Winslow. He yelled into the payphone, paid a clerk $20, said she'd take care of us until our grandma got there. She held you while you cried, whispered in your ear like it was the day you were born. She taught us how to count to 10 in her language, made bologna sandwiches, gave us honey packets for dessert while we waited. You said you were sorry for dreaming. You said you thought Dad was taking us back to Canyonlands or to California. You never stopped crying after his truck, but I looked toward the interstate for Grandma's car. I was happy to go home. I pack shoe boxes, plastic bags, cloud-like in the back seat. I wait for you to stand. You say the only patterns you remember are those of ditches and how they all lead out of that place we call home. Truck stops, your cigarette breaks, how dad always turned left to move further west. You say it was easier to move, to crawl into cars with trust. We were much younger, everything was more alive then. But you were vibrant once, remember. At birth, the older relatives showed our new bodies to dawn's soft blue and gave us names. They asked us to grow our hair long. Hair snaking in an old bathtub we used as a pool, mine dark like lightning struck trees, yours the honey we spread over crackers. Remember when we lost our brushes and used our hands as combs. Remember being thrown in morning snow, boiling water over fire. They said all of it would make us strong. We stayed up all night, hung posters of singers on the wall. We became young women. You spun under burning skies, said you wished the whole world had this sky, dreamt from railroad tie to railroad tie, and asked, why would he leave this? You slept in the corral with the lamb's sunlights, remember? You held the books he left up to your nose, fanned the pages, inhaled, but said it didn't hurt, said you never wanted to leave home. You left some weeks after Grandma passed, remember? You met a man from some city. You said he taught you how to grow wings, how to feel good, that it was your time to fly. When all compasses rusted and when years of phone calls and letters failed, I turned left onto Highway 264, climbed first and second mesa, turned over rocks in Polaca until I found the woman who taught us how to count to 10. I knelt to kiss her weathered feet, cried into her lap. She shuffled over her dirt floor, fed me potatoes and boiled some coffee, ran her hands over my hair short as corn silk. She knew I was deep in grief. I told her I ran after the greyhound that took you south, but that I could not call you back. Asked how she got you into Grandma's car that afternoon in Winslow decades ago, for the words she whispered in your ear. She said she was much younger then, but told me to show you the quiet things only sisters know, to place honey packets in your palms and pockets, to find a juniper and set down some stones for you. So here we are in the orange light of 19th and Thunderbird, 464 miles from home. I will give you a minute. I will go through the boxes, the bags to find you a jacket. I will buy the cigarettes, the honey, hold your shaking hands through the fever, bring you spring water and call you teapot to slow down your heart. We can count the minnows, we can wait it out. We can string these moments from old clotheslines when all of this is over. We can watch them weather and rust, call them pictographs and charge tourists $5 to see them. We can argue about how it all happened. We can slam doors and meet again over boiling tea. We can borrow each other's clothes. We can learn how to grow old, how to watch where we are walking and to take our medicines. We can pretend it's getting young again. We can go to Yatahey Hall to watch young people fall in love to country songs. And somehow the dirt clouds, this love kicks up. The cowboy hats floating in soft dance lights will make us remember. You made your own sundial with crochet needles and a paper plate once. You were able to catch light. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. If anyone wants to unmute and give Paige a round of applause, feel free.
Hi, Garrett. Hi, Nay. I have some family that's here. So hi, Byron.
Oh, I love that.
Hi. Yeah, thank you all for being here. I was excited to share all of those. So
Thank you so much, Paige. That was, so you read 4 poems, 2 on the longer side on either end, and then 2 shorter pieces in the middle. And I'm wondering if anyone has questions please drop them in the chat, or if you'd like to unmute and ask your question directly to Paige, feel free to do so.
I'm curious about how your heritage, how the Navajo, I assume is the major heritage, how that enters into your, I mean, I've heard some elements of it with the grandmothers and the food, but how much of your childhood and your tradition are you able to bring into your writing?
So you can't separate it, you know, it's so inside of you that you can't even begin to say, oh, I only got this from it, because it's all there. So like everything, even like naming the babies, and showing them to the dawn, like there's just so many things that I could just like keep listing, and just the landscape, the traditions, the language, it's just inside. So I couldn't uh, imagine writing without it, because it's such a big part of me.
When you say you're in community, are you on a reservation, or are you, you live in close proximity to all your people? And
Yeah. Gallup is just right on the border, and I teach on the Navajo Nation. So all my kids are Navajo, my family's Navajo, I'm around them all the time. So it's a completely a part of me. Um, I'm really lucky to be home.
we're lucky
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
to hear.
Elizabeth says, Sun Dagger is a perfect title. Love the way you end the poem. The last line echoes back to the title in such a powerful way. And I loved how you said that you thought that last poem was perfect and that you don't want to change anything about it. And I'm wondering if you could talk about if you have a process for revision. Did you revise that last poem at all? And how are you thinking about weaving so many multiple strands of narrative threads throughout each of your pieces?
So Byron Aspis, who's in attendance, also a wonderful writer, he and I always kind of joke that we're like two draft writers. But this one actually, I wanted to flesh out the narrative as much as possible. I wanted to capture the relationship with the grandmother, the dad, and the sisters. And I wanted to take it over a long period of time. So it's one that actually took me quite a long time. The original was about 15 pages long, like just that. There were a lot of like dreams, some reflections, and I kind of decided to pull those out so that it was the most impactful. And I kind of really had to look at what the skeleton of it was and how much was just extra. And then after I finally got there, I was like, it doesn't need any of this extra. It's there. So I really worked on kind of making the sentences more concise, just a little bit more powerful, because I tend to write really long things that kind of drive me crazy and might drive readers crazy too. So with that one, I really wanted to kind of cut it down, make it as powerful as possible. And as far as revision goes right now, it's not so much about the individual poems as much as it's about creating a really big thing where all of them kind of talk to each other and explain like a larger narrative. So right now that's where I'm at kind of with revision. It's getting there. So hopefully the poems all find a place within each other. It's been fun.
Yeah, because you're working on a book of narrative poems. So you have several, for a poet who's working on sequencing that and ordering your collection, are you at that stage of development of your manuscript? Which one goes first, and if there's an arc in the narrative and that you're telling through the book?
Yeah, I'm really excited to say that that's where I am. I maybe have like two that I kind of have to pull out of somewhere. I know they're in there, but maybe just two to kind of clear things up. But otherwise, it is in the what's going to go first. How is this one speaking to this one? And it's actually been the most fun part of the process. And I don't feel like there's any pressure. I just kind of let it come to me when it does, work on it when I can. But I'm at that stage. I'm excited.
That's so exciting. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So Byron says or asks, would you consider yourself a nature writer? Landscape is so present in your work and voice. Could you talk about that presence?
Byron, I knew you were gonna do this to me. I don't know. I don't know, because it's one of those things where it's so much a part of us that how do you even separate it, you know? Maybe because if you took all the landscape out of my writing, what would I have? I probably wouldn't. I'd have like half of it. So maybe and the land is such an important thing to us. It's such a part of how we grow up, where we spend all of our childhoods, the dirt that's in our hair. So maybe I've never really thought about that before. If I took out all the nature, what would we have? We wouldn't have a lot. And our culture is so entwined with nature that, yeah. So maybe a new genre.
Byron says, then yes.
Then yes, yeah.
Do you have time to read? Are you reading anything?
No, not really. I've been reading text like Frog on a Log.
So everyone in the audience, if you don't know,
Yeah.
Paige is a elementary school teacher for first graders primarily. Before we started this reading, we were talking about sight words and working with small kids.
I listen to a lot of songs though. I've been listening to a lot of Lead Belly. And Byron is actually the one who's been asking me about the you in my poems a lot. And that's a tool that songwriters use. So now I'm like trying to get to like the heart of that. And I'm like, oh, it's because I listen to so many songs. And if you listen to songs, they always use that you and they pull you in. So there are these universals that we all have. And I'm really trying to get, if I can pull you in here just a little bit, even though you're come from this, it's like so many different experiences. That's my ultimate goal. So I've been listening to a lot of songs. Listen to Taylor Swift's new release.
Oh yeah.
Her album Red. Yes. Oh my gosh. I listened to All Too Well probably about 10 times trying to figure out what she's doing with her lyrics. That was yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, that was a big deal. It was like 4 million,
For
views
sure.
or whatever. Yeah.
And I'm like, there's a reason 4 million people are listening to that song like in 2 hours.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating because poetry was an oral tradition before we started writing it down. And I find it really exciting to hear that you are attracted to different genres, like that songs provide, because I heard so much musicality in your reading and the poems that you shared with us tonight. And I love thinking about gravitating towards music as a way to engage with language as well. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that second person, that you in the poem, because as poets, we get to use that in different ways. It can be slippery because it can also be self-reflexive. It can be like you're talking to yourself, like the speaker in the poem is talking to yourself, or it can be a direct address to a particular person or to an audience.
I really like the you, and it might be, and it is tricky, like you said, it could be, and I know it could be off-putting if it's too many. So it's really a tricky thing to kind of see where it's needed and where it's not. But I like it in songs. If I could play an instrument, I would probably be a songwriter, but I can't. I try. And I don't feel like they have to defend it. I feel like they just write a song, and I know they put thought into it. I know there's editing. I know a bunch of stuff, but no one ever asks them, hey, why did you use the you? You know what I mean? Like, it's beautiful. It is what it is. And people take it for what it is. It's just a beautiful song. So I'm kind of hoping that my work, I have to believe in it enough to be like, it's you. And that's just the way it's going to be. I like it for now. I have been told to try to challenge myself to use a different person, a different perspective, but they're not the same. but it is a good exercise for me to kind of undo it and try to do it a different way. But I always kind of go back to it. I feel like it's more impactful, and hopefully it's translating to like you, not like me talking to myself, because I'm intending for it to be the person I'm talking to.
Wait, Elizabeth Brown says, I really enjoy the you in your poems. They feel intimate.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think I'm justifying it through songs. I'm like, they don't have to defend it. I don't have to defend it.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
like a love letter.
Mhm.
Like a
Yeah,
love letter.
exactly. Exactly. And it is like, I think this first, I always say if this collection gets on its feet, it's like my love letter to home. Home is always like the first book. And maybe after this gets out, I'll be able to expand a little bit more and use different things. But this is my home, so it's kind of a giant love letter, which Byron has said too. So
how have you thought about writing from the collective, from we? But you did it so seamlessly in your work, and I really admired that in your reading.
thank you. I don't really know where that comes from, really. I think it's just wanting to include people for all of it's a way to bring everybody in so that the readers are experiencing the universal, but in a place they may not have been before. So that's what I'm trying to accomplish. So if you were able to kind of feel any of it, then that you kind of did its job. If you have never been a part of here, then that's what it did, and that's what it's for.
Yeah,
So,
I love that. That's like an offering and an invitation in a way.
yeah, I like the we and the you. So I'm glad that it's not too overwhelming or overdone.
I just want to thank you so much, Paige, for reading your beautiful work. I'm so excited for the future of your manuscript. And I know it's a long process. You're a patient person. You understand it's going to take the time it's going to take. I'm so excited. I really hope that you're sending at least some of those poems out into the world.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for being here. I had a really good time.
Yeah, Elizabeth is saying that your writing takes us places.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paige, for being here.
All of you take care of each other out there. Keep it to yourselves. Thank you. See you later.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.